My friend, the journalist Andy No, regularly posts photos of Antifa types who get arrested in Portland and other cities for their riotous activity. It's kind of revealing because normally these Antifa guys are shadowy figures in masks and you only see them as sort of outlines. But here you can see them up close. And Andy is too much of a gentleman to point this out, but man, are these people ugly. I mean, that's the striking feature, is just how twisted their features are. I'm not just talking about run-of-the-mill, homely or ordinary. These people are freakishly ugly. And some of it is their own doing. The things that they do to their faces with paint and metal objects. But I mean, the effect is frightening. I mean, you could scare a kid. You could cast them without makeup in Lord of the Rings. And it's got me thinking about whether there's an ideological significance to this fact of nature, you might call it. Many years ago, a professor of mine, Jeffrey Hart, would walk across the Dartmouth Green, and he'd see these protesters who were actually protesting apartheid in South Africa. And he said as he looked at them, he began to wonder to himself, what possible relationship could these kids have? They knew nothing about South Africa. They'd never been there. It wasn't remotely part of their lives. What could they possibly know about what was going on in Cape Town or Johannesburg? And the answer was they didn't know. So what were they really protesting? What was this all about? And then Professor Hart observed these protesters closely, and he said, I noticed that as a group, they're kind of disheveled, and quite frankly, they're kind of ugly. He began to think about it, and he said, well, maybe, this is just a hypothesis, but not an implausible one, maybe here is a clue to the real source of their anxiety. Here's what they're really objecting to. They're protesting their own ugliness. But of course, they can't say that, and so they displace it onto some faraway cause and pretend that their indignation is directed at that remote injustice, when they're really objecting to the injustice of nature that, as you may say, made them into the frightening creatures that they are. And I think something of this insight can be transported to Antifa. These are people who really object to their lot in life, not to the fact that their economic circumstances, they're actually living in one of the most privileged societies on the planet. Many of them are from privileged families. But what can they do about their appearance?